One type of rhetorical synthesis prompt is a best summary or overview prompt. Now, we've seen that before when we looked at study-related question prompts, where we had to find, say, the study's findings or its method or its aim. We've seen the word summarize, and that summary was usually the end part of one of the middle bullet points, as we see here, before we get examples of the findings. What I'm talking about in this case is slightly different. It's a standalone summarize or overview prompt. In this case, the student wants to summarize something, and we want to identify what that something is. It's the Kelp Highway hypothesis in this case. Well, I can see right away that last bullet point, the proposed scenario is known as the Kelp Highway hypothesis. Of course, I have no idea what a Kelp Highway hypothesis is, so I probably want to see what that is defined as among the bullet points. So how do we answer a best summary or overview question? Any best summary is just that. It's the bullet point overview of the key points. We're lucky we have bullet points in this question format. And I want to include them in order, so they're generally going to be sequential. Let's go ahead and read the bullet points and see if we can find the keynotes and tag them in order. So archaeologist John Erlandson and colleagues argue that humans first arrived in the Americas by sea. So I guess that's the first step, or actually really the larger claim related to the Kelp Highway hypothesis. They propose that humans traveled between the Pacific Ocean islands and coastlines from Northeast Asia to the Americas. Okay, so it's saying what happened, and now we're getting how it happened. Many of these islands' coastal zones were later submerged and melted as the sea levels rose. The researchers think that a coastal route, including kelp forests, thus the Kelp Highway hypothesis, would have provided a rich mix of marine, estuarine, riverine, and terrestrial resources, such as seaweeds, fish, and birds. In other words, they would have a lot of food and things to live off the land from. What is our Kelp Highway hypothesis? The sort of topic claim is it's a way humans first arrived in the Americas. And the way it happened was they proposed that they went from the Pacific Ocean islands and Asia to eventually the Americas, and they crossed this coastal route that provided a rich mix of food and animals and everything for the people to survive. Eventually those glaciers melted, and it sounds like that highway went away, but I'm not sure that's really important for the highway hypothesis per se. So I want to find an answer that touches upon those keynotes in order. Let's see what we have. A, Pacific Ocean islands and coastlines likely contain a rich mix of marine, estuarine, terrestrial resources such as seaweed, fish. Okay, this is a partial answer. It's one part of the hypothesis, or the list of elements that go into our summary. It's not the summary, so this won't be a best summary answer. B, one argument about how humans arrived first in the Americas is the Kelp Highway hypothesis proposed by Erlandson and colleagues. Okay, that is the topic. That is essentially what the hypothesis covers. But again, that's only one of the bullet pointed items. That's not going to be a best summary. A best summary must be a list, usually sequentially, of the different bullet points. C, humans may have first arrived in the Americas by sea. Okay, that's our topic again, and that's the first thing in our checklist. Traveling between Pacific Oceans and islands and coastlines. That's the next step or check in order that we tagged. And subsisting on a variety of resources. Yes, along that route there were kelp forests, rich mix of food, seaweeds, fish, and birds. That hits upon all our highlights sequentially. That's going to be the best summary, because that's exactly what a best summary needs to include. D, as glaciers melted and sea levels rose, many islands, coastal zones were submerged. That was the one point that probably happened after, really isn't critical to the hypothesis. Even if it were, it's too narrow. The correct answers on these questions will not be an individual bullet point or an individual part of the event that happened. It's going to be the key points chronologically or sequentially put together. So you're going to have to tag those points and find the answer that puts them together in the right order. That's going to be the best summary. In this slightly harder example, a student wants to provide an overview, slightly different wording, but the same idea. It's going to be a best summary summarized question. And the object or the thing they want to summarize or get an overview of is the Matsutake commodity chain. Now again, I'm not sure exactly what a commodity chain is, but I not only want to know what that is, but I specifically want to summarize the Matsutake commodity chain, not just any commodity chain. So let's begin to read through this and see if we can identify what the commodity and specifically this commodity chain is. So A commodity chain is the series of links connecting the production and purchase of a commodity in the world market. Okay, we have a definition of what a commodity chain is in general, not particularly the Matsutake commodity chain, but a general definition. Chinese-American anthropologist Anna Singh studies the contemporary commodity chain of Matsutake mushrooms. Okay, this is background information. At one end of the chain, the Matsutake chain, so now we're particularly talking about the commodity chains we need to summarize, are mushroom pickers in Oregon. So that's the first part. At the other end are wealthy consumers who buy the Matsutake mushrooms. That's the next part. According to Singh, Japanese traders began importing Matsutake in the 1980s when the scarcity of Matsutake in Japan became first clear. So this is another key aspect or point in the Matsutake chain. So I want to put together these three ideas. On one end, we have pickers in Oregon. On the other end, we have wealthy Japanese consumers, and they've been doing it since the 80s. When the actual Matsutake mushrooms became scarce in Japan. So let's see what answer choice pulls together all these points for our correct summary answer. A, the contemporary Matsutake commodity chain has its origin in the 1980s. It's true. When, according to Singh, the scarcity of Matsutake in Japan first became clear. Okay, again, that's too narrow. That's one of the bullet points. It's not going to be a summary, which is going to include sequentially the different steps or bullet points. Commodity chains include the linked production and purchase of commodities such as the Matsutake mushroom on the world market. Okay, that's a better answer, but it's a general definition of a commodity chain. And it just says here is one of them, but it really doesn't identify or give us a sequential list or overview of the Matsutake commodity chain particularly. So that's too broad an answer. It's not right. C, decades after the Japanese import of Matsutake began, okay, that's in there, right? Remember, that's that bullet point there. A commodity chain now links Matsutake pickers in Oregon. So not just any commodity chain, but it's a Matsutake commodity chain. So we're getting that particular detail. In Oregon with wealthy consumers of the costly mushrooms in Japan. Those were the other 2 points in our sequential list of what describes or summarizes a Matsutake commodity chain. This is going to be your correct answer. C. Wealthy consumers who buy the costly mushrooms in Japan are at one end of the Matsutake commodity chain. Again, like answer choice A, this is just one part or one bullet point even within the chain or the summary, so it cannot be the right answer. So for best summary, that is summarize or provide an overview question prompts, we're looking for the bullet points sequentially that highlight and summarize exactly what it is we need to summarize. Wrong answers are typically just one bullet point or one part of that, or in some cases, a generalized definition without describing particularly the detailed subject of what you need to provide an overview or a summary of.